Okay. So if you remember this past weekend, I took it out on its maiden voyage, basically. That actually stuck. The throttle cable was just a incidental thing, but this was actually its maiden voyage, and I made it 1.5 miles. I got into a trivial little hole, sippy hole. Heard a snap and lost all drive on the left bank of wheels. You saw it, towed 1.5 miles out of the woods, etc., etc. Here it is in the shop, up on the cradle, cradle dolly, so all 6 wheels are off the ground. Fired up the motor, and now the motor won't idle. Just dies right off. Brand new carburetor. Dies right off. It's sputtering and stumbling. So I got engine issues. 300 hours or 370 some hours on the machine. I was under the impression it hadn't been driven much, but that's a lot of hours. Apparently Argos are real sensitive. They need their maintenance. They need their upkeep. Things need to be changed after a certain period of time, like chains and cylinder heads on engines and things like this that I wasn't aware of. So that snapping noise, I thought, all right, on the main drive chain assembly that goes from the transmission down to the drive axles, it's a short chain, about like yay long. There must be a shear bolt in there, in that sprocket. Nope. The only shear bolts are in the gears. I'm really tired. They're in the gears, or on the sprockets, excuse me, on the drive axles, going to the wheels. So this is just chain on sprocket. So that means it's in the transmission. Something let go in the transmission. I verified this by having the machine up on the dolly, starting it, managed to get it running. I had to start it in gear actually and turn the idle way up and partially choke the engine. So the wheels were turning. I snubbed the wheels on the left side with my foot to stop them from turning, and then looked in there on the transmission, and the output shaft coming out of the transmission was not spinning. So yeah, something in the transmission let go. On top of that, the engine's running bad. I think I overpaid for this machine substantially. The chains, I pulled the chains out off of that primary drive, and they're all stretched out. So all the chains are stretched. Tensioner springs are weak. Basically needs a complete rebuild. This machine should have been $500. Not what I paid. My opinion. Granted, I'm going to say it again. I'm not going to bash the seller because he didn't know. when I picked the unit up and test drove it at his property, it had the tracks on and it drove. I drove it up and down his driveway. I drove it down a little side chute, turned around, did a couple of donuts. It worked. He told me that he was having trouble keeping the engine running, something with the choke. He wasn't sure. So he was up front. The fact that the transmission had an internal failure on my watch is not his fault. That being said, I'm going to have a lot of money in this thing. It's okay. I mean, it's not okay, but because I love it, it's kind of become my baby, ThunderToad. I've never seen a brown one. Just bought a brand new set of tires for it. Got a new set of rims coming for it. So I'm in it for the long haul. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm in the process right now of pulling the transmission out. Believe it or not, it's pretty easy to do. I thought it would be a nightmare because everything's tucked underneath. You know, the engine's in that engine bay covered up with shrouding, and the transmission is underneath the dashboard. I thought it'd be a nightmare. All I had to do is find the master link on that double roller chain on both sides, pop that out, take the chains off. Now I got to take out 4 3/4 inch bolts that bolt a cradle to the frame that the tranny's bolted to. And I should be able to pull that transmission straight out from underneath the dashboard. So that's what I'm in the process of doing right now, is cracking those 3/4 inch nuts or bolts out of there. And once again, I'm super happy to see that they use heavy duty stuff. I mean, this isn't wimpy stuff in here. So you can see the cradle. Those 2 bolts in the front, those are actually the belt tensioning system. You raise or lower them and it tips the cradle up or down to increase or decrease tension on the belt. It's pretty ingenious. Here's my big 3/4 inch bolts. And I've got them on each side of this cradle. See one right there in the front. Right here. I think I'll get the breaker on that. I need 2 hands, so I'm gonna crack all the rest of these out of here and see if I can get this thing out.